Bipartisan. No, you don't have to.
No? Okay. Well, Ted Cruz is a literal garbage person. He has voted consistently against expansions for Veterans Affairs bills and expanded funding there. He's anti-choice. He doesn't want you to choose what's best for you. He wants the government to handle that for you. And if a Republican comes up and tells you that they're for less government, remember that you live in Texas. We have 258 counties in Texas, so we have more government than anyone else in the union. We have more government that regulates what we do than anyone else in the country. Okay, just keep that in mind when you go to vote. Now, I personally am going to vote for veto because veto is pro-recreational. With going through proper steps of going through medical first, you know how we normally progress with these types of things. He's pro-choice. He sits on the Veterans Affairs Committee right now in the U.S. Senate, Congress. And moving on from there, I'm not really going to talk about Ted Cruz because I really don't care. Moving on from there, for governor, you have Lupe Valdez, who is running as a Democrat, and then you have Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott is in a wheelchair, so I'm pretty sure he smokes weed.
No, he's staunchly
but
against
he doesn't want you to have deal with smoke weed.
No, he's got the pharmaceuticals are in his pocket.
Really? Then for lieutenant governor, and this is one of the most important races for me because my girlfriend is trying to become an educator in the state of Texas. You have for lieutenant governor, you have Mike Collins and Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton, before he took office, the state of Texas was property taxes go towards education in the state. So what you have is since Ken Paxton has taken office, the amount of money that the taxpayer is paying has risen to about $23 billion a year, and state funding for education has stayed relatively the same at $19 billion a year. Now when Ken Paxton took office, the taxpayer was fronting about $15 billion a year for education, and the state was putting forward about $20 billion a year. So if you know somebody, if a teacher affected your life, if you have a relative that is a teacher, I would suggest voting for Mike Collins. Going further down the line, we have here locally we have Mitch Templeton and Melody Chappelle. I'm kind of torn on this one because I'm a libertarian. So Mitch has more of a consistent record as far as his voting goes. Melody Chappelle does not have nearly as much experience as he does, but she has done more high-profile cases. The only bad thing about Melody Chappelle is she got kind of wrapped up in all that BISD nonsense that we had a couple of years ago. You guys remember that? Coming even further locally, our District 14, we have Adrienne Bell running. I forget who's running against her because he really doesn't matter because Adrienne Bell is our most progressive candidate that we've seen in this area in about 25 years. So Melody Chappelle has my vote. Adrienne Bell has my vote. Then locally we had Charlie Hallmark, who was running as a Democrat against, I forget his name. They're both really nice guys, but I'm voting for Charlie Hallmark because he has a lot of progressive ideas in the way that we fund our county and our county seat, which is here in Beaumont. Let's see. I think those are really the only ones that to me matter. But in May of 2019, we have our local elections, which is going to be city magistrate, city council, and mayor. I'm running for an at-large position for city council, which basically means I don't represent a certain section of Beaumont. I represent all of Beaumont altogether. Currently, we have Bill Sam and W.L. Pate sitting at large positions. Bill Sam is a fill-in for Gethel Wright, who passed away late last year. Bill Sam will run again, so what better opportunity for me than to go ahead and run. Now, as far as what I would like to do for my constituents here in Beaumont, one of the first things that I came out with was municipal ISP. That basically means a city-owned internet infrastructure. What that will allow us to do is to save those of you who have internet here in town a little bit of money, have better speeds. But what we can do with that is those who are not as gifted financially as you or I, low-income families, we'd be able to offer them internet at a lower cost. which, because as we can all agree, right now, internet is no longer a luxury that we are all afforded.
Right.
Internet is a utility that is essential to everything that we do every day in our lives. But from there, that was what I started with, and that's really all I had at that time. But I announced in February that I was going to be running, and since then, I've actually gotten to know a lot more about the community and the way things work. Corey started talking earlier about how we can affect change here locally. You can go through the petition process, which is about 1,200 signatures that you need. But even if you get the 1,200 signatures that you need, you can present it to the city council, and they can just kind of ignore you. Now, the way it works on city council is a city councilor can propose something. If he has a second, you need 2 people to present something to city council. And then if that gets it on the agenda for us to discuss, open up comments for the public and everything like that. Now, when it comes up for a vote, you need 4 votes. Right now, most of the time, city council votes unanimously. If you don't have 4 votes, the thing won't pass. So if we want to work towards site and release, which I'm actually in favor of, Corey actually has kind of been educating me a little bit more about that. Zena Stevens, do we all know who Zena Stevens is? Yes. She and I have actually been talking about it too, because it's something that's very important to her. In speaking with Junior Singletary down at the police department, he's actually kind of in favor of it too. He's still kind of on the fence about it. But I think if enough community support was behind it, he'd be right up there marching right next to us to go to the city council and say, hey, this is something that we want. And speaking with some of the officers in the Beaumont Police Department, you get about a 50-50 response to it. Some of them are in favor of it because A, it's going to save them time, and B, they'll be able to prevent more crime. The other 50% kind of come at it with an attitude of, well, I'm going to have to fill out the paperwork anyway, so I might as well just take that. So if we can work towards kind of changing that perception of site and release, I think we could probably see it here within the next 2 to 4 years, especially if I get elected to city council, by the way.
We better have it before then.
I would hope so, but
I'm looking at
the
4
elections aren't
years.
until May, so there's not really there.
I'm looking at 2020 get site and release here.
What's that?
I'm looking at 2020 get site and release here.
Oh, it could definitely happen by 2020 if we get enough community support behind it and we get the 2 votes to get it on the agenda. And then basically it's up to those 2 people. That would be me, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think Auburn Sanders or Robin Luton would back that up. So you have the 2 votes right there. Then all it would take is to get 1 more vote on city council to get something like that passed. But I think it would be more prudent for us to work with the county, bringing in Zena, who still has a lot of pull, even though she's going through some other crap right now. I think working with the county to get it countywide would be more beneficial, which would affect those of you who don't live in Beaumont.
Yeah, because everybody goes to this county jail. You don't have a city jail.
Everybody,
so.
yeah. I've spent a couple of nights in county jail, and it's awful. It's absolutely awful. Now, for a little bit of history on me, I was born and raised here in Southeast Texas. I went to school in Lumberton. I became addicted to barbiturates, Xanax, painkillers, stuff like that, at the tender age of 15 years old. By the time I was 21, it had taken over my life. I eventually ended up getting myself into rehab. After rehab, I was homeless for a couple of years, living out of my car. Now I'm 15 years sober from clean living from barbiturates and stuff like that. I still drink and I still do other things. Can't necessarily say exactly what I do as a candidate for city council. Who cares? I smoke weed all day, all time.
You're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone in this room.
Honestly, it's the only way that I make it through the day, dealing with politics all day, every day. From there, I lived in my car for about 3.5 years. From there, I became a landowner. I now own land in North Texas, up in Lumberton. I'm looking at buying a house here. I've gone from having $0 to my name to, being able to buy a house. So, who better to represent the city of Beaumont, the people of Beaumont, than someone who has been at their lowest and climbed from their lowest to doing pretty okay. From there, we're talking, lately we've been talking about adding more police officers to the force. Corey and I were actually talking about earlier, I'm actually in favor of adding more police officers to the force, but with the rider of what they call CITs, Crisis Intervention Teams. That deals with more with mental health issues, nonviolent offenders that have mental health issues. I think that's the only way to move forward. We don't need more jackboots on the street. We need more people who are willing to help those who are less fortunate than you and I. To keep people out of jail. We have too many people in jail as it is right now. Why would we want to add more people that don't have the mental facilities to be able to live on their own and not be called, have the cops on them? And we're talking about people that may have missed their medication for a couple of days and end up wandering down the street. Those people don't deserve to be in jail.
Xena has stopped accepting those into the Jefferson County Jail. She
Really?
made a public announcement and said she will not accept mental health arrestees that have no serious charges. If, like you said, they miss their medication or walking down the road, somebody calls on them, cops on them, has nothing else, can't take them to MHMR, can't take them to the hospital, going to take them to jail. So they make up this walking on road where sidewalk is provided and taking them to jail on it.
Right.
You know?
Also, you need to know there's a new $60,000 grant that was going from Singletary to Spindletop for 2 new liaison cops
Yes.
to do mental health work
That's
to
good.
prevent them from going in.
Right.
But
Now-
Spindletop is trying. They're doing their best.
Spindletop's doing the best that they can with what they've got.
It's here,
Spindletop,
that's a good thing you said, the best they can with what they've got.
I don't know what the city can do on its own to help with that, because the current city council will sit there and tell you that the city's doing fine.
But there
our
is
budget's doing
a
great.
60,000 grant that just went and happened in the last month.
Yeah, and you can actually find that in the budget. I did see that in the budget, because that's one of the boring things that I have to do is actually pour over the
Yeah, there's a
budget.
new grant that happened, and God only knows what's gonna happen to it.
Yeah, well, Spindletop has a record of spending their money the right way. Steve Fitzner works down at Spindletop. He's a phenomenal dude.
I
He's
know
kinda-
him. I
yeah,
know
kind of
him.
filled me in. And then a lady named Nat Harvey is also working down there, and she's actually dating my uncle. So I've kind of got a little bit of an inside track on
Yeah,
what's
they're doing the
happening.
best they can, and we're lucky to have them. And
Yeah.
let's just pray they keep on doing what they're doing, and
And
keep people behind, keep people out of concrete and barbed wire.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
the cannabis community is not against law enforcement or increased law enforcement. We're against abuse of power and
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly, that's why we're having
wrongful
this big
imprisonment.
overflow of
Yes.
Nike hats and socks and stuff like that right now.
We want more police officers to better protect us. I mean, what was it like, just this within the last couple months? We've had several shootings and a stabbing.
We've had 9 shootings in the
Yeah.
past 2 months.
Yeah.
And I think 4 of them were repeat. They were the same people committing the shootings. I've actually been on scene for 2 of those shootings. The one over on MLK, the MLK gas. When the clerk was shot there, I actually heard the shots from where I live, got in my car, decided to drive up there. I got there about 5 minutes after the cops got there. And these scenes, if you've never been on a scene like this, it's absolute chaos. And one of the reasons I think it is like that, because the city is budgeted for 150 patrol officers. That's not including sergeants, lieutenants, captains, what have you. That's 150 officers for 118,000 people. Right now, we have several vacancies in our police department, so we're down to actually 139 different patrol officers. That comes out to about 11.4. I think that's 1 officer for, or 11.4 officers for every 10,000 citizens of Vermont. The national average for that is 15.6 officers for every 10,000 people in the city. So we're well below the national average. So that's one of the things that I kind of want to focus on. But as Autumn Samuel brought up a couple of weeks ago, we do need to have a focus on mental health. From there, right now, I'm meeting with several teachers from the area to see how the city can actually help BISD, because that's another thing that's going to prevent us from doing our end goal, which is economic diversity, population growth, and beautification of New York City. So I can't really speak to education in this town, even though education is extremely important. Downtown revitalization. One of the things that I'm actually working on with Mike Getz and Robin Samuels right now is to actually get a realistic timeline, because we continually talk about the riverfront and how we want to make it pretty and all this other stuff. But we don't have a realistic timeline, because what we're waiting on is federal government funding from FEMA. The problem with that is that we're still receiving money from Ike and Rita. Now, Ike was 10 years ago. We have received less than 50% of what the FEMA funding from Recovery for Life. We have to receive less than 50% of it 10 years later. So if we're waiting on funding from FEMA to come forward from Harvey, we could be waiting 3 to 4 years. If we have another major hurricane hit us, we're going to lose another 40 to 50 feet on our riverfront. And that means we get closer to losing historic sites. We're talking about the Jefferson Theater, the Terrell Library. We do not want that to happen. We could lose City Hall, for God's sake. So one of the things that Ogden Samuels, Mike Getz, and I have actually been kind of loosely talking about here lately is what's called a vacant buildings ordinance. Utilizing our current city code and applying it to vacant buildings, where these buildings have to go onto a registry, which creates revenue for the city because they have to register, pay a fine, and then they're subject to quarterly inspections of their facilities to make sure that they're up to code. If they're not up to code, they get a fine, they don't pay the fine, it comes to their Class C misdemeanor. So that makes these guys with all these buildings downtown. Who's been downtown lately? Anybody? Any garbage? It's garbage. Lots of empty spots that are looking run down, lots not taken care of. So what we want to do is we want to encourage these guys to actually take care of their property so that businesses and people will want to move into these areas. That's pretty much all I've got planned out so far. Does anybody have any questions for me as far as what I can do for you as an extension?
When are you gonna start forming the campaign?
I'm actually kind of waiting until after the general elections because I don't
That
want-
is?
November 6th?
Yeah, after November 6th. Okay.
Because I'm working closely with a lot of the local candidates,
Okay.
like Charlie Hallmark and Adrian Bells.
Okay. All right.
I've already filed with the State Ethics Commission, so I can receive donations now, but that's not why I'm here. I actually met my fundraising goal like 2 months after I registered.
Congratulations.
So, yay, it was awesome. So right now, it's more about getting out and actually meeting with the people that I want to vote.
So that's the name you're gonna be using is T. Roger.
I'm actually going to be going by Thomas because the people involved in my campaign think that it would be stupid for me to call myself Teach.
Okay, Tom.
Does anybody have any questions as far as policy, procedure, why you should register to vote, any of that stuff? You ready? You ready?
We covered that a lot.
How long does it take to fill out the card to register to vote?
It takes about 3 minutes if you're
Thank
really
you.
slow.
Thank you. And are there people here that will help you fill out the card?
There are people here that will help you out to register to vote. Corey and Christy are both deputy registrars. And I will say that I'm going to be throwing, are you deputy registrar?
No, I just got here. Who are you?
Oh, you did?
I just walked in.
Oh, okay.
Who are you?
Oh, my name is TJ Rothman. I'm running for at-large city council. What was I going to say? I haven't had too much to drink. I'm going to have 2 now and I'm done.
We were just discussing the importance of voting.
Oh, the importance of voting. What I've noticed, being on Facebook here locally, especially in Beaumont with some of the more popular people, is that a lot of people complain about what's going on in Beaumont. But then if you ask these people, well, did you vote in the last elections? They'll say, no. Well, if you want things to change, you have to get out there and vote. Oh, that's where I was going. I'm actually going to be having several parties from November to December. I'm going to be doing some stuff at Luke's, I'm doing some stuff at Thirsties. I might have something here. Chantel and I can get that together. And at each one of my little parties, I will have a deputy registrar, maybe 3 at this point, to make sure that you're registered to vote. Also, another thing that you might want to keep in mind is check the status of your registration. I was registered to vote in the primaries that just happened. And between the time of the primaries and now, I was purged from the voter registration rules. So take it firsthand experience. They are purging rolls, so check the status of your registration to vote. How do you do that? You get with Corey or Christy, or you can go down and see the county clerk. That would be Allison Nathan Getz down at.
So if we've been purged, the only way to find out is to go to the courthouse?
Yes. Unfortunately. I was
Because I
actually down
can't
there
tell you,
putting in my
Jim.
paperwork for,
I'll be honest, I can't
ethics
tell you at this
commission.
moment. I said I couldn't tell you at this moment whether he was purged. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, you would think that with advances in technology, you would be able to check that online, but I don't know of a way, and I spend most of my day on
Can't you
email.
just call her?
You can call her,
Yeah.
um,
Call her. She'll-
but Allison's such a sweet lady that you should just go down there and see her and bring her some brownies and she'll give you some candy.
I'll bring you some brownies.
Any questions on the current surge of crime or anything like that? No?
Good luck.